This is What's Left America. I'm Chris Tritico.
I'm Andy Georgeson.
I'm James Campbell.
And I'm Chris Bell.
What's Left America is proudly produced by Left Out Media and brought to you by the generosity of our sponsors and friends, and hopefully someday friends just like you. Today on the show, we're going to cover the Schultz effect. Was it a tweet? And intelligence chiefs. It's hard to say intelligence and Trump. Intelligence chiefs versus Trump. And, of course, we're going to end the show, as always, with Out of Left Field. Before we begin, though, I want to take just a few minutes and talk about Virginia Governor Ralph Northam. This popped up after I put the show together, but defying pleas from his own party, everybody in his own party, the Democrats, he is accused of racism for either appearing in blackface or wearing a Ku Klux Klan robe. Equally the same in my view, in a photo that appears on a page in his medical school yearbook. He said on Saturday that he would remain in office and flatly denied today that he was even in the picture, after admitting the day before that he was in the picture. And then he said, even though I wasn't in that picture, he admitted that he put on blackface when he went to a party dressed as Michael Jackson. But he did say, it's definitely not me. After having a chance now to look at the picture in the yearbook, I can say it's definitely not me by looking at it.
So I know we don't want to discuss this a lot, but, you know, the Democrats in the African-American community have always had this kind of uneasy relationship because of the Democrats' loyalty to Republicans. So this puts them in a really difficult situation, but there can't be any moral equivocation on this, because they call out Republicans who or get caught with this kind of stuff. And so they have to basically call out Democrats who have this kind of stuff in their past.
Well, they sure have.
Well, I'm glad that they have. But, you know, what are they going to do in terms of asking him to leave office? They need to basically be more strong about that.
I've only seen one Democrat say he can stay. One. And everyone else wholesale has said he needs to resign immediately.
Well, I think he should resign. You know, and I think people could change over time. But, you know, if he was really sincere about this, he should have talked about this at the beginning of his campaign.
So let me ask this. Let me just throw this question out. This guy was probably 24, 25 years old when this picture was taken. First, I don't believe it wasn't him. You either remember or you don't. When you were in blackface, you were in a KKK outfit. You either remember or you don't taking that picture.
If you're Brett Kavanaugh and you've had too many beers,
but let me ask this question.
Beer?
Let me just ask this question.
Like beer.
Yeah, I do like beer.
You like beer.
But let me ask this question. At what age in your life do you recover from something like that? This guy was probably 24, 25 years old when that was done. And he's probably in his mid-50s, late 50s now. When do you recover from something like that?
Well, that's one of the questions that has been raised. If you look at social media, is there going to be any kind of statute of limitations on some of these complaints? How far back are you going to go? Because not so much in this case, but let's talk about how the rules have changed since the Me Too movement. Obviously, if you go back years and years, the way men talked about women was horrific. But we don't hear a lot of people going back and saying, hey, you know, back in 1970, back in the 1960s, so-and-so said this, and now they need to be run out of office. So I don't know. This kind of, I think, crosses a line. He was in med school. We're not talking about high school.
Right.
We're talking about the KKK.
You know not to wear that. You know not to put that on.
If somebody came up with some audio or video of someone making comments about women on a par with these photos, blackface, KKK hoods, I think that there would be calls for that person to resign or leave office, or
from
leave
back
their
in
position,
the 1960s,
whatever their position might be, unless. And this applies equally to the situation at hand. They had a record of saying, you know, I was a dumbass, but now I'm not a dumbass, and what I did was wrong. But you don't get a pass just because time has gone by. You have to show that you've changed. I agree with James Campbell. People can change, and I'm completely open to the idea that if you have realize that you've done the wrong thing in the past, and now you know it's wrong, and you want to make sure that other people don't think that this is the right thing to do, then yeah, give the person a pass, but not just the passage of time is not enough to erase.
One more.
But there's an ulterior motive to this as well. This was
On whose part?
On the Republicans' part.
Oh, well.
Because they basically unearthed this. It was a
Right.
Breitbart associate who brought this out, and they are doing it because of his stance on abortion. And so, and to
On every stance, I'm sure.
and to, of course, to try to expose the Democratic hypocrisy on this. But fortunately, Democrats have come out very strongly and vocally about this. But, I'm of the mind as well that at some point it has to be a statute of limitation on this, and we have to have some forgiveness because Lord knows, I haven't done anything racist or crazy, but, there's some things in my past that, I don't want held against me when I was 25 or 21. And so if a person has shown by the way they lived that they've changed, Jeff Sessions being the exception, then I think they should be forgiven.
Well,
I'm just glad I lived with those monks when I was younger.
Well, far be it from the Republican Party to be casting stones at any Democrat. I mean,
Well, what about Mitch McConnell?
Yeah.
This picture that's circulating with him accepting an award in front of the Confederate flag.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
he looked like a young man.
right.
He may have already been an elected official at that point.
Hey,
Well,
exactly.
what was the award? I mean, just the flag in the background, unless he was. I mean, even if he was carrying the flag, there are degrees of difference. And I'm not defending Mitch McConnell, but standing in front of a flag. I mean, shit, I stand in front of Confederate flags because I live in Texas. And if you are in public spaces, you're bound to be caught on a picture in front of
You
a
should see the
Confederate
picture.
flag.
I mean,
No,
it
you got to
was
see the
clearly.
picture.
Yeah.
Is there, so to that end, is there a difference then in this governor when he was in his 20s dressing up as Michael Jackson at a party, and the picture that he's in the yearbook? Is there a difference in that?
Blackface. We don't do blackface.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
And he wasn't a freshman in college. He was in
I
medical school.
get that medical school part, but he's trying to
and
draw a
even the
difference
way
between
that-
dressing up for a party.
Well, that just shows to me that to me shows that he hasn't learned a single thing. The way he talked about the mind, and I didn't use a lot because that stuff is hard to get off. So clearly he has some experience with it.
I thought the same thing.
Maybe he doesn't remember whether it was him in the picture or not because he did it so many damn times that
That's exactly what I
don't know
thought.
if this is the exact time I did it.
There may be some other pictures out there. All right, let's move on. The Schultz effect. Former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz announced that he is considering an independent run for president in 2020. The lifelong Democrat says that he cannot run in the Democratic primary because the party has gone to the extreme left. In his 60 Minutes interview, he extolled both parties' extremes on both sides. He's not made up his mind, and as he told Scott Pelley, Schultz appears to share the conviction endemic among American elites that the country hungers for a candidate who is socially liberal but fiscally conservative. He got lambasted by the Democrats when he did this, and he kind of told people in his own circle that he's reconsidering this, and I hope he is.
Well, he's not trusted by the Democrats, the Republicans, or independents.
Maybe still his wife, but that's about it.
But I think what's going on is we have this new fascination with CEO presidents and
Billionaire candidates.
Yeah, and so people have.
I hope that's worn off.
Well, some people are saying, you've had career politicians run for president. By the way, in our country, we live in a great country. A tomato can could run for president if they're old enough and haven't been convicted. So, we have this new fascination about CEO presidents, and now it's Howard Schultz and people like him, like Michael Bloomberg's thinking about running, depending on what Joe Biden does. But give them a shot. But Democrats have to know that they're going to pour from their base and not the Republican base because people like this, lifelong Democrats who decide to run as independents, have the same positions as most Democrats.
Well, Schultz says, I'm not going to pull from Democrats. I'm going to pull from those Trump supporters who says they cannot vote for Trump anymore. That's not going to happen.
That's not believable. That's
no,
not
absolutely
credible.
not. He obviously he just wants to be a venti, right there in the middle. And
A venti is at the top.
That's a grande.
no, that's a grande.
It's a grande.
That's
A venti
I mean, I guess he
is
wants to
bigger
be a
one.
venti, but he's trying to run as a grande. But he's really just short.
but he's got that grande fortune. So
That's right.
anyway, it's absolutely absurd because he's not going to be an equal opportunity offender, and he'll hurt the Democrats a lot more. And I think people are, saying otherwise or just kind of want to stick their head in the sand. But apparently the backlash is getting to him.
Right.
I don't think he's going to run because he can't stand the first little, outpouring of the outpouring of criticism on his piss poorly planned announcement. He didn't think it through. He didn't seem to have an understanding even of a lot of the issues. He didn't understand how tone deaf his announcement would come off, and I think that he's not gonna go through.
Well, if he got his feelings hurt with that backlash,
Yeah,
he's certainly not ready
he's
to
not
run for
ready.
president.
Well,
He's not ready.
He talks about wanting to restore the two parties, bring some sanity to the two-party system, and that's why he's running as a third-party independent. And the problem with politics in this country is, Congress and gerrymandering and all those things that make people live in their little tribal villages and fight it out, via their congressperson. And so you have that gridlock, or you have one party being the party of no and the other one taking the other side. And so I don't know that somebody from the top can change that. Obama tried. Then we have a guy who came in and said, I'm not going to even try. I'm just going to be me. I'm going to do me. And, look what we have now.
Well, and since the 1980s, we have had very conservative fiscal policy, and look where we find ourselves. And I think, as we discussed on last week's show, most people in the Democratic Party are willing to accept some much more drastic measures to try to bring back the middle class and try to create more jobs in this country and bring some fairness and income equality. And so I think proposals like taxing, millionaires 70% over the first 10 million and those types of ideas are going to have a lot of traction. And just coming in and saying, hey, I'm just going to go along with the Republican Party on all fiscal policies, but I'm socially liberal, I don't think that's going to get you there anymore.
It's kind of wearing off. All right, let's talk about, before we run out of time on this topic, Cory Booker entered the race, laid out a vision for the country that will channel our common pain back into our common purpose, is what he said. The history of our nation is defined by collective action, by interwoven destinies of slaves and abolitionists, of those born here and those who choose America as home, of those who took up arms to defend our country and those who linked arms to challenge and change it. He made the announcement on the first day of Black History Month. Oddly, Kellyanne Conway claims that Booker is sexist for running against the women who are already announced. There it is.
Well, that's the dumbest damn thing I've ever heard.
Crack me up.
But, Cory Booker lost me at Spartacus. That here's a guy who's basically been running for president his entire political life, and you can accuse a lot of politicians of that. I think everybody probably thinks about it, but after their first election, but few have been so transparently running for president as Cory Booker, and I just don't see a lot of substance there. For a long time he was out. His big campaign message was about love, and I don't think we need the president to dictate love in this country. I think we have other problems.
I don't have a problem with Cory Booker running for president for a decade before he announces. I mean, that's your breaking point. Here's a guy who appeared in blackface, and you'd say there's a statute of limitations for him. But for a guy who's just, testing the political waters for a few years, that's the cutoff. I completely disagree with that. I like Cory Booker. Let him get in there and have it out with Kamala Harris. He's probably going to lose. She has outwitted everyone with her announcement. She got more play than I mean, the only person that is more media savvy than her at this point right now is OAC.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You know, run, Corey, run.
So I don't think he changes the equation at all. I think he's kind of candidate light. But I think that the good news is the Democrats are finally having really robust primaries after 4 consecutive, presidential primaries where there was just,
lame.
Okay, this is our anointed candidate.
Well, I'm not going to say lame.
Yeah.
Hillary, I'm not going to, let me retract that.
Yeah,
Go ahead, though.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
It was just, everybody, this is our candidate. Y'all just stay to the side. Now, we're going through, as we talked about last week, we're going through kind of a generational change in the Democratic Party, especially at the top. And what you're having are younger, more progressive leaders stepping up to run. And I think that what we're going to have is this discussion of ideas and which way the party goes. And so you have a Howard Schultz and a Joe Biden, if he gets in, who will pull the party to the center. And you have a Cory Booker and a Kamala Harris who and Elizabeth Warren pulling the party more progressive. And so I think it's time we had this kind of discussion.
Yep.
The Republicans have been having these kind of discussions for years, and they finally decided we're just going to go all in on crazy.
So there's been several stories last week that Hillary Clinton is seriously considering running again.
I think that's a trial balloon, and maybe there are some people out there who are trying to encourage her to run, but I think a replay of Trump versus Hillary would just be a disaster for the Democratic Party, number one, because I think it's time we had a discussion around which way the party goes, and that discussion has started. And I think we need to keep it going. We'll see what happens. I think anybody would be better than what we have at, what's the 1100 Pennsylvania Avenue right now.
Chris, what do you think?
Well, I hope she doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't think that a repeat would do the Democratic Party well. I have a lot of admiration for Hillary Clinton. I'm certainly not any type of Hillary hater. I just think that she's had her chance, and she's run twice, and it hadn't worked out. I know it was horribly disappointing, and it certainly was bad for the country. But I don't think this is the time to reemerge.
I agree.
I don't think Biden ought to run either.
Why?
He is he's an old guy. He's got a lot of negatives in his past. This race is for a younger generation. Old white guy is not going to bring out the voters on our side.
I guess it depends on what you call a younger generation. Kamala's our age.
Okay,
She's
well,
54.
Biden's not.
Elizabeth Warren's certainly our age or older.
Well, she's not a man,
Corey's
and
younger.
she's got some fresh ideas. And Biden is.
He was a great vice president.
He's a great vice president. I love him, but I just don't think he should run.
All right, let's move on. Was it a tweet? Now, here's where we are. Chris Bell, after getting pummeled all last year, has rocketed into the lead by half a game.
Oh,
rocketed into the lead. He's got 2.5 wins. Andy, who was leading, has 2 wins. And who's in last place, Chris?
James Campbell.
James Campbell is in last place.
Oh, brother, bringing up the bottom.
All right, here it is. Question number 1. There will not be tunnels under the wall. New technology will prevent. Fake news.
Not a tweet.
Not a tweet.
Tweet.
Not a tweet.
Damn. Brother keeps descending.
While I am a critic of President Obama, I hate it when someone, Robert Gates, writes a self-serving negative book about his boss.
Wait, what?
While I am a critic of President Obama, I hate it when someone, Robert Gates, writes a self-serving negative book about his boss.
Not a tweet.
You had to dig deep for that, so I'm going to say tweet.
Tweet.
That's true.
That's a tweet.
Yeah, you guys strategized your way through that one.
That was a tweet. All right. For great success, you need passion, but make sure it's well-directed. Learn everything you can about what you're doing. Be an expert.
That's way
Not a
too
tweet.
intelligent.
Not a tweet.
That's way too philosophical.
I bet it's a tweet.
Not a tweet.
I bet it's a tweet.
That
but
was a
it's-
tweet.
Oh my God. He must have had somebody write that for him.
All right, what's the standings there after 3?
I
It
have
is,
2.
Chris has 2.
Wait,
Andrea has 2.
You
I
said it
have
was a
1.
tweet. You said it was not a tweet. Okay,
Yeah,
so
We all got the last one
Yeah.
wrong.
2, 2, and 1.
no, I said I bet it's a tweet. I bet it's a
No,
tweet.
you
But
said
you-
not a tweet.
But then I said I bet it's
no,
a tweet. I bet it's
no,
a tweet.
no, you can't change. You said not a tweet. That
You
was your
said
answer.
Not a tweet.
Rewind the tape, Keegan.
We'll go back later and check the record. But I heard you say not a
I
tweet.
said not a tweet, but then I said, wait, I bet it's a tweet. I bet it's a tweet. I said it 2 times.
No.
Okay, fine. I don't care. That's okay. That's okay.
I'm not
I'm
paying
gonna-
that close
All right.
attention.
That's okay. That's okay. I don't need.
Number
I don't need
4.
your pity.
Number 4. Number 4. It's time for Afghanistan to stand on its own. They can do it.
Tweet.
Tweet.
I said tweet.
Oh, you did? I didn't hear you. Okay. Not a tweet.
Oh, God. Okay.
All right. Number 5.
We're tied, still tied. 2 to 1.
All right.
2 to 2, but whatever.
Arnold Schwarzenegger will be almost as good as me hosting Apprentice.
Not a tweet.
Not a tweet.
Not a tweet.
Not a tweet.
Okay.
All right. So we have a tie.
Yeah, 2.
All right. Here's the tiebreaker. You can't con people, at least not for long. If you don't deliver the goods, people will eventually catch on. The art of the deal.
Not a tweet.
Tweet.
You're out.
I am. I
Okay.
just
All right.
decided to participate.
Not a tweet.
Tweet.
Tweet. Damn. Andy
Wins.
wins. Even after all that controversy, she still wins.
I want a replay. Let's go to the shot thing.
All right. Andy takes the lead again. Back in front.
All right.
Back in front. Now you feel better, Andy?
I feel all right.
All right.
That's the heat.
Moving on.
It's
Intelligence
frugal consumer.
Intelligence chiefs versus Trump. The nation's intelligence chiefs testified before Congress and rebutted, well, everything President Trump has said, well, about everything. Trump, of course, who famously skips his daily briefings, knows more than all of them about foreign affairs. And, well, let's just say he was miffed when they countered his assessments on the problems with what his officials gave remarks publicly before Congress, not behind closed doors, when they said that Trump was wrong about his assessment about Iran, ISIS, North Korea, Russia. Trump responded in kind on Thursday when he said his intelligence chiefs needed to go back to school. While trying Thursday afternoon to diffuse the dispute with his officials, he said that they had ironed it all out when they met and they were totally misquoted.
I think they said fake news. Didn't they say fake news?
They said it was fake news. The problem is, I guess he forgot that it was all live on TV and recorded, and we can all see and read and hear, Mr. President.
I know. It used to just be C-SPAN, and nobody really cared about watching C-SPAN, but now it's on every network. Everybody can see it.
And when I was reading the show notes for today, I really thought that read just like something we would hear in tweet or not a tweet.
That's right. That's
or
right.
is it a tweet?
Yeah.
I mean, fake news, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally happened live on TV, and then the president said, no, they were misquoted.
Fake news.
You know,
That's right.
But the one thing that I can say about this is that I'm encouraged that the Republicans have some adults still in the room that's willing to go out in the public and really tell the truth about what's going on in the world and how dangerous it is. You know, despite what Trump says, I mean, everybody knows that he doesn't care about this kind of stuff. He doesn't want to get it. He doesn't understand it. He doesn't have the aptitude to grasp it. And so, you know, there are people, look, I was on the Chronicles editorial board when Dan Coates was a senator from Indiana. I was literally afraid of Dan Coates because he just wasn't that guy who was so far to the right. But he's seems like a reasonable guy now because Trump is so far out there.
Dick Cheney seems like a reasonable guy.
No. We have our limits.
but you know,
That was a joke.
I just think that you have people who are putting the brakes on this president and keeping him from acting on his worst instincts about stuff that he really
I feel
has
like we
no
don't know
idea
that
about.
for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like
I think we do.
that. Well, do we know it or do we just?
Well, it's wishful
do we
thinking.
just sort of feel
it's
like?
wishful thinking.
Yeah.
It's wishful
I
thinking.
think
hope.
I think this says to us the number that we really need to be focused on is 716, because as we sit here today, there are 716 more days until we inaugurate a new president of the United States. I did the math before coming here today because I think that's the only thing that's going to end this, and it goes beyond being funny or interesting or anything else. When you hear stuff like this, it's frightening. I mean, the whole North Korea situation, all the bunk that he sold us about his great talks and what they were going to do, and everybody knew it was complete bullshit and it wasn't going to happen, and now they're coming out and saying, no, it's not happening.
But this idea that he won't take his briefings and he just, I know more than you do. You will do what I say even though it's wrong. What's the damage he's doing?
But I don't think I think James is right. I don't think they are doing what he tells them to do.
Wow.
I think it's kind of the whole thing that goes back, that came out in the book. Like Mathis says, gets off the phone and says, no, we're
going to do it
we're
anyway.
not doing that.
Yeah.
Well, and James, I agree with you about his lack of capacity to understand, but I do think he cares about this stuff because I do think that he still wants to do what makes Putin happy.
Yeah, that's probably
Well, I'm glad you brought that
that's
up.
probably right.
It came out last week that he had yet another private meeting with Putin at the G20 with only Putin and Putin's interpreter. And this just came out, and the Russians have a transcript of the meeting. The United States has no idea what happened in the meeting. So this is Russia's interpretation of what happened at the meeting, and they have the only transcript of it.
Oh, so you're saying they have more stuff to blackmail him with? Oh,
yeah.
Well, we're not surprised by that, Chris. Everything that he does against any other world leader, particularly our allies and friends, is basically to demean and tear apart those friendships and those relationships that sustained for years. And now he has Putin, who he does everything for and never says a bad word against. And that tells me that has to be a tape or something, because why would this man be so beholden? But on the other hand, they just recently, became more punitive on Russia in terms of sanctions. And so he can fall back on, well, I've been tougher on Putin than anybody.
But not really.
but
He
hold
just
on.
canceled the sanctions against the one oligarch.
But oftentimes, as an attorney, I will advise clients, if they're entering into an agreement, to just let the other party keep the agreement, and they should not have a copy. And then the other side can just dictate all the terms. It's a very good practice.
Yeah, exactly.
And he just,
We do that all the time.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, I can't even believe that's legal for a president of the United States to go in with no witness and no interpreter or anything else. It's absolutely insane.
Well, I think you'll see as time goes by, you're going to see Congress passing laws, and we'll find out if the Supreme Court is going to allow the president to be hamstrung that way. With our checks and balances, I don't know if you can.
Okay, so the most important thing that came out of those hearings, in my mind, was not one of those intel guys said, we really need a wall because we are detecting terrorists coming across.
Oh yeah, they all said there aren't
border.
any. They all said there aren't any.
I know.
But I do want to say, we always say what Trump did wrong. He did do something I thought that was right, and that was acknowledging Maduro's challenger as the rightful president of Venezuela.
Yeah,
I thought that was the right thing to do.
But even that could become a slippery slope without a strategy. I mean, at Bolton's briefing, somebody saw
His notes,
5,000
yeah.
5,000 troops to Colombia. I look at what our strategy in South America and Central America has always been wrong. And I even blame Hillary Clinton for removing the Honduran leader, and that country descended into chaos. And now that caravan that's coming.
You mean Bill?
No,
Hillary when she was
Hillary,
Secretary of State.
When she was Secretary of State. And now that they have this chaos in this country, and Venezuela is not an enemy country. They just have a bad leader, but we need to be careful about who we side with just because they say they embrace democracy, because those countries are basically, they're democracies, but the institutions
might be a little
like
bit
ours.
different definition than
Right. I agree their definition may be different, but we weren't the only ones that recognized him. There's been several countries that recognized that.
Because Maduro is so bad.
Yeah.
But whenever
And the election was clearly a fraud.
Well, I think that I'm with you. This is troubling. It may appear to be the right thing to do now, right? It was a complicated legal strategy that they undertook to get, and it was coordinated. It looked like, wow, we got a functioning government.
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
It's like, they actually coordinated
for a few minutes.
for a few minutes. But the outcome is usually something that we don't want.
Yeah.
And Bolton gives me no warm, fuzzy feelings that this is going to be for the benefit of anybody in Venezuela.
If this thing in Venezuela, if this thing in Venezuela turns out to be a bad move, it'll be another bad move for 170 years in South America by the United States. I mean, it won't be Trump's fault. I mean, we have not made the right move in South America in literally 170 years.
We don't have a good
It won't be
record on
Trump's fault in that he doesn't understand what's going on around him. But
name one right move by us, literally in 170 years.
You know what? Well, not Central America. Yeah, but I gotta give a shout out to George Bush Jr. He was good with Mexico. And he knew how to have just having been Texas governor, he had a good relationship. He understood the importance of Mexico, and that was positive.
He seems to have had a better relationship with him than Donald Trump in some respects.
I think so. Yeah. other than eating taco salads on Cinco de Mayo. That's right. Yeah. That's what Donald Trump does.
Was that his tribute?
That's
Is
what
that
he did.
true?
Yes. You don't remember that? When he was running for president on Cinco de Mayo, he went down and ate taco salad.
At Taco Bell?
No, in Trump Tower.
Well,
But from Taco Bell.
No,
Probably.
from Trump Tower.
at
They
least
made
he didn't go to a Mexican food restaurant and order the gringo plate.
Ford ate a tamale with the husk on.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. All right. Last thing before we move into out of left field. Have you been following the stories from the Trump golf courses all over the country where they've been firing illegal immigrants that have been working there for years?
And then one has come forward.
Yeah, one's going to the State of the Union.
Right.
Two places in Florida, one in Virginia, and then one, I can't remember the other one, that came out last week. They've been firing them all over the country.
Why?
They've been
because
employing
people-
illegal immigrants at Trump facilities, and I'm sure that as the press identifies
apparently
these
that
people,
was even too high a level of hypocrisy for Donald Trump. So they had to do something.
Yeah.
2 years into his presidency.
into the presidency. Yeah, Mr. President, we better do something about this.
Oh my God, that's so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is the biggest level of hypocrisy I've seen in a long time. All right, let's move it out of left field. 34 minutes, Andy. How about that?
That's good.
Yeah.
That's
James will take us up to 45 here in a minute.
No, if you give another Bobby Kennedy tribute, we'll be here to the Super Bowl.
Who wants to go first?
Commercials included.
Just cut the mic. Yeah.
I'll go first. I want to remind people as we enter this political season that this presidential political season that's taking off rapidly, that there's such a thing as Snopes.com. I was having breakfast with a friend of mine who is no fan of Elizabeth Warren, and we were talking about her New Year's Eve, I guess it was her New Year's Eve video that she put out, and he said, "Did you hear what they found behind her? You know, she was in her kitchen, and they found this horribly racist figurine. Someone zoomed in on it, and that it was a picture of a young African-American boy eating a watermelon. And you can see it online. It's horrible, this figurine. And you run it on Snopes, and it's complete bullshit. And it was like a little Greek picture or something that they had turned into this racist figurine. But my friend, who's extraordinarily intelligent, sitting there spreading that news, fake news, by the way, there at breakfast. And so I would remind people, if you hear something that doesn't sound just quite right, Snopes.com, and you can run it, and they do a really good job of ferreting out the truth.
PolitiFact also is another good one.
Yeah.
They do a good job.
Go, Chris, go.
I mean to go? All right. So for years, I've heard that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and I've lived by that. And I spent years, and I got to back up because I spent years working very diligently to earn type 2 diabetes, and it's hard to do that. You have to work very hard to get that. And doctors told me for years to pay attention, and I didn't, and I earned it. And then once you earn it,
Well, at least you did it the old-fashioned
the old-fashioned way. Once you earn it, and they tell you you now have a disease that will kill you if you don't pay attention, you then start paying attention, and you work very hard not to have type 2 diabetes. And so you lose weight, and you listen, and they tell you you should get up every morning and have a moderately sized breakfast. So for the last 15 years, I've gotten up every morning and diligently eaten a moderately sized breakfast. And today, I got up and I was reading the newspaper, and I was reading about an article about a new medical study. And this is why I don't like medical studies. A new medical study that said if you eat breakfast, it makes you fat. Come on! Come on! That's not fair.
It's not fair.
It's not fair.
It's not fair.
Oh, I've been doing this for 15 years. They told me to eat a moderately sized breakfast to control my weight.
I'm not a breakfast eater.
Well,
It's not fair.
look, but this is where you do an A/B test. I'm eating breakfast, a moderately sized breakfast for 15 years. Am I losing weight?
I don't like these medical studies. There was one years ago that said if you eat steaks cooked over a charcoal grill to give you cancer. That's not fair either.
That's not fair.
Well,
All right, I don't like medical studies. That's my left.
just don't do what my friend did, and he was going to use Slim Fast to lose weight, and that's what his breakfast was going to be. But he thought it was a diet supplement. He didn't realize
That was supposed to be
it
the
was
whole
a
thing.
substitute. So he would drink that in addition to his breakfast. Anyway,
Was this your highly intelligent friend? So many highly intelligent friends.
So my out of left field is about my son turning 21 yesterday, and he and I spending a day together, and him having his first legal drink with me.
Keyword legal.
Yes, I want to emphasize legal drink with me, and but I tried to impart some words with wisdom, as every father does, and my son is taking a long way around to manhood, and he is trying to work, raise a kid, and go to school, and it's a long road, but he's now 21 and on his way to manhood, and now I won't feel so bad when he says, Dad, I'm going to have a drink.
happy birthday!
Happy birthday.
Birthday, Justin.
Happy birthday.
Oh, man, that can't be. I remember when you brought that little sweet baby home.
No, and now he's drinking. among other things.
He's on the road to ruin.
He probably has a little bud every now and then.
Don't say
And I'm
that.
not talking about the Bud Light.
Don't say that.
Wait, and now he's drinking
Yes.
for the first time ever. Well, I wanted.
Legally for the first time.
I swear to God, I'm not really sure. I might but the Super Bowl might be happening today. Am I right about that? Okay.
That's
So,
why we're taping early.
okay, I thought it might be that, but I just didn't want to. Yeah, I wanted to ask first. But so, in light of that, I remember reading an opinion piece in the Washington Post, and I looked it up so I can give credit to the writer, Martellus Bennett, who played in the NFL for 10 years, and he won the 1917.
Wow.
The 2017 Super
They
Bowl.
let brothers play then.
With the Patriots. And anyway, he wrote about something that I've believed and said many times, which is that let's give black children, black boys especially, a goal other than professional sports. You know, we do so well in professional sports because I think that black people do well at everything that they focus on, and that white people let them do. Entertainment and sports, right? And then a few of us manage to become well-educated, live a middle-class life as productive citizens, but the children who are funneled into sports as the means of all their dreams coming true, 100 out of 100 practically are not going to achieve that. And I'm glad that this guy who had success himself in the NFL wrote a column and trying to discourage parents from making that a sole option for their kids. Don't put all your eggs in that.
I want to see the
professional
brothers
sports
get
basket.
involved in downhill.
Let's make our Super Bowl
Olympic
prediction.
skiing, so I can see some brothers.
I would like to see that
against
too.
white
It's easier to see them.
Yeah, and their brothers tumbling down the hill.
All right. Super Bowl predictions.
Well, let's make our
Okay,
Super
first
Bowl
tell me who's
predictions. Maybe we can beat Andrea at something.
I am going with Tom Brady only because he's a senior citizen, and I think that he has one more Super Bowl in
That's
him.
the Patriots, right?
Patriots.
Yes,
It's
the
Patriots
Patriots.
versus the Rams.
Yeah.
It's the Patriots.
And
I
he's-
am not for the Patriots. They're going to lose. They're cheaters.
Who's going to beat them?
I don't know. Whoever the other team is.
I'm going with LA 28-21.
Oh, do you have to say a score?
I think New England
That'll be
will
the tiebreaker.
win 35-14.
Okay.
I'm going with New England. I'm going to say 34-28.
It's not going to be that close.
I'm going to say L.A. That was the other team.
Yep.
Are they the Raiders?
It's the San Francisco. No, it's L.A. Go ahead.
Los Angeles Rams.
Oh, the Rams. Who are the Raiders?
Oakland.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Well,
No,
Okay, so
they're
I'm
LA
going
too.
to
They're LA also.
so it's going to be L.A. 105. No, I'll say L.A. You said 34-28. I'll say L.A. 34-28.
All right. That's all the time we have this week. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and please rate us on iTunes. More important than that, what do we need, Andy?
Please, oh my God, please
we need
subscribe.
you.
We
Please,
need you.
please. We're trying to get to 100. We need 100. Please. That would be translated 100.
It's all about subscriptions. Go to Lipson or your favorite podcasting site and subscribe to What's Left America. Much thanks to Vertical Ascension Entertainment and Keegan DeLay, our in-studio producer. We'll see you next week. That was good.